Hello, my name is Maria Marta Chavez. I'm the CEO of Catch the Next. I am temporarily filling in for Dr. Erin Doran, who's the director of our professional mentoring network, and she is the host of these monthly webinars. So feel free to join us the third Thursday of every month at the same time, and you will be able to participate in these discussions. For those of you that are coming in and your name is not Yvette Regalado, but it shows up as Yvette Regalado, I see one more person is coming in under that name. If you can please go to your name under participants, there should be three little dots, and you can rename yourself. And before I introduce our main speaker of the day, I wanted to just very quickly have you go around and introduce yourselves. It is the start of the new academic year, and it's wonderful to see all of you. I see Debbie over there now with us. So Yvette, since you will be the main speaker, I'm going to save you to the end. Why don't we begin with Debbie? You're on mute.
There we go. Using the phone for the first time. Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah, and I am the I work with engagement for Catch the Next, with peer mentors, and with interns.
Thank you, Debbie. Good to see you again. Thank you, Lisa.
I'm Lisa Jackson, and I am an English professor at Dallas College Mountain View campus.
Which college?
Dallas College Mountain View campus.
Okay. I couldn't quite get the campus because you kept breaking up, but I'll look you up in our directory now. Great to see you again. Lori, you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, my name is Lori. I'm a librarian at Cuesta College in California, but I used to teach with your organization, and I have never heard of restorative literacy before, and so that's what brought me back today.
Right, you back. Excellent. Well, it's wonderful to see you again. Thank you for being with us. Teresita?
Hi, everybody. My name is Teresita Ramirez. I'm a math faculty at Dallas College, and I'm also a leadership fellow for Ascender. And I also am the faculty mentor for the Girls Discovering Math Club at North Lake.
Wonderful. Thank you for being with us. Armando?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armando Sanchez, and I'm the operations manager for Cash Connect. And I also am a former alumni who still, to this day, from 2017, I'm still with Cash Connect just because that's how wonderful they are. And I really wanted to help them out because I feel like I definitely love what they do, and I just want to continue the growth and open those opportunities for the students like me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Trina Bowers?
Hello, everybody. I'm Trina Bowers Johnson, and I am currently an English language arts instructor at Texas State and finishing up my PhD in developmental literacy.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great to have you with us. Dr. Alanis? I think she just joined. I think she's not on yet. Dr. Nassim?
Hello. Sorry, I cannot have my camera on. My name is Nassim. I'm a doctoral student in developmental literacy, and I also teach reading comprehension at Texas State University.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Dr. Alanis, are you with us? If not, I will introduce Dr. Erin Doran. who is playing with her new laptop, and she's having difficulties getting it to, produce the sound. As I said, I'm filling in for her. She is our Director of Professional Mentoring Network. She also oversees our Journal of Ideas and Pedagogy and Research and Evaluation Program. And you can always contact her with any additional questions you may have. The guest speaker is someone that we're very proud of, Dr. Yvette Regalado from Texas State University. She has been with our organization, I think about 2 years, first as an intern and then as a staff person, focusing on curriculum and instruction. We are very proud of her accomplishments, but I will save those for her to share with you. And without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Yvette Regalado.
Okay, can everybody see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Excellent. Wait, hold on, don't look at that. I'm giving you all the surprises. Oops, okay. So again, my name is Dr. Yvette Regalado. Again, I'm just getting used to saying the completed title as I graduated this May. And so we're talking about in this presentation, enacting cariño and embedding restorative literacies in community college. And so before we begin, I like to start with Strayhorn's definition of belonging for students in community college or for college students, and that it's the perceived social support on campus, a feeling of connectedness, mattering, or feeling cared for, accepted, respected, and valued, validated by faculty, peers, and what I like to add to that definition, the curriculum. The findings from my study will bridge this gap and give us a reflective moment so that we can create a welcoming environment for our students this coming fall. So first, real quick, if you could throw it in the chat of how you feel this day, and you can also put in there your campus. As we know, a lot of us are going back to the campus next week.
So we put the number on the chat?
Yes.
Okay.
I was trying to think about like Thursdays. 1-5. Ah. Already at number 1? No. Excellent. And so now we're going to move to the agenda. And so for today's presentation, we're going to talk about why curriculum matters, the perspectives that I used regarding my research, the research questions, our finding, and then how can we reflect on that moving forward into this new semester. And so I like to think about what Bell Hooks says, that the class remains the most radical space of possibilities in academia. And as we negotiate in this space, I like us to remember our community values and workshop request, which is that we acknowledge each other as equals. We try to stay curious and look for what we like in one another. We recognize that we need each other's help to become better listeners, and that we remember that the conversations and storytelling are just the natural way that humans think together. And of course, if you've been in one of my presentations, you know that I always give a moment of gratitude to my ancestors. My familia, I see you. Your history is part of my history. Your counter stories are my counter stories. Thank you for paving my way. Your fight, your tenacity, and your ability not to quit has helped me persist, resist, and show up today. Thank you. And so as we think about curriculum and why it matters, we think about this Venn diagram, as you would say. And when we think about this as a visual aid, we're not saying that two of them equal that. We're saying that this represents these affects in multiple ways, right? So I think this is a great visual for us. And so what this is actually visualizing is that one way that literacy attacks can harm students of color is Eurocentralism in the curriculum, misinformation in history textbooks. And again, that can be part of my life story, is when my indigenous ancestors and how they were reflected in curriculum, right? And how in history books, and not necessarily that was a true reflection of their history. And then disparaging depictions of minoritized communities. And so within these spaces, ways that students of color can feel is feeling othered or double consciousness, developing low self-worth, internalizing deficit narratives, and assimilating or becoming unfamiliar with their culture and community. And so then thinking about the why are we doing this work, right? Students of color can feel invalid and distressed if they do not feel their culture, community, or ancestor histories are represented in the INRW or any form of curriculum spaces. And so that is the main goal of what we're talking about when we're talking about restorative literacies, right? If we're acknowledging that there are harmful literacy experiences, then we need to know that we have to do restorative literacies to heal those afflictions. And so I just want to give us a moment. I'm going to say 3 to 5 minutes. If you could journal, reflect and I'm going to give you some prompts. So journal for 5 minutes and write about a time you felt like your ancestry, culture, or community was excluded from the curriculum in the classroom, or you had an educator say something harmful or hurtful to you, or that you realized someone in the classroom's culture, community, language, or home experience was excluded or misrepresented, or you are considered part of the majority culture. However, you feel like you're being lumped into this one category, and then your own ancestry histories are being excluded. And some of my friends would associate that with the ancestry of Italians and Irish. And I should have music, but I don't. And again, for the new people who came in, we're just journaling real quick for 5 minutes on a time when you felt like in the past, maybe you had your ancestry history or culture or community excluded from a classroom or curriculum. You had an educator say something harmful or hurtful to you, and then you realized that someone in your classroom's culture, community, or language or home experience was being excluded or misrepresented. Or if you're considered part of the majority culture, how do you feel about being lumped up into one category and then the exclusion of your ancestry history? Yes, Erin. I remember when that happened in history when I was in the classroom. And then we're going to give 1 more minute. So finishing that thought, that sentence. And we are wrapping up. And so I hope that was a good kind of reframing the study and why it's important for us to think about why curriculum matters and how, like Erin posted in the chat, as instructors, we do need to be mindful on the material that we're presenting to our students. And so now we move to the purpose statement of my study, which was to investigate how participants enacted cariño or critical care to embed cultural community practices, or as you read, restorative literacies in the INRW classroom to create a safe counter space for students of color. And so if you have been joined with Catch the Next, then you should be familiar with Cariño pedagogy. And so Cariño pedagogy, again, is a framework that combines culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy to create a way of teaching that prioritizes critical care in a healing centered for educational care. It's an asset-based approach that centers on humanizing the ethics of cariño, right, to disrupt that deficit narratives and to create a healing centered space for our students. Again, from at the beginning of our presentations from those literacy attacks. And then we go into restorative literacies. And FYI, this picture and the one before was created by AI because there is no restorative literacy imaging. So restorative literacies, curriculum choices, right, to respond, repair, and restore students' academic experiences. So our students can experience healing by engaging into literacy that can build resilience by giving them opportunities to push against those harmful narratives. As educators, we can explore innovative ways to celebrate students' identities by prioritizing representations in many different perspectives and different types of texts. In doing so, we can build community that focuses on engagement and motivation, which makes sure we meet students where they are with love and without judgment. So let's think about that real quick. That was a lot to digest. And let's put some in the chats of what a takeaway from those two things, about taking away about Cariño pedagogy and taking away from restorative literacies that we've learned so far. And we are getting some great conversations in the chat. I appreciate everybody engaging and thinking about those two perspectives that really encompass my study. And we'll just give about 1 more minute in case anybody's working on typing something in. Great comments. Excellent. Oh, yeah, that's a harmful deficit perception. And again, thank you for sharing all of your wonderful moments or reflecting on how these concepts intersect with our own experiences. So the research questions that I used in my study was, how does cariño show up when practitioners implement culture and community practices, or like we stated, restorative literacies, and how are those reflected in their syllabus? And how does the current teaching push against deficit narratives, and if so, how? And so part of my department, and we have a couple of people here representing our development education department, we did a book study on small teachings. And so I really like how they give us little small teachings to use for our students. And so I wanted to implement that here. And so pause, predict, and ponder is us giving students opportunity to stop and predict, right? When we give them opportunities to predict on what they think that's going to come up in their learning, it gives them the opportunity to learn deeper and to really start working on their metacognitive abilities and start thinking about their thinking. So I thought that would be a quick example of us to practice. And so if you could predict and ponder and pause, what do you think my findings were? Or what unique findings were when we're thinking about and interviewing practitioners from Catch the Next and other places in INRW who enacted cultural and community practices for their students? Okay, so one of the first themes we're going to bring is why enact cariño? Why did my participants enact cariño? This theme reflects participants engaging in authentic cariño, which supports critical liberatory practices such as mentorship, community involvement, reliability, disrupting and dismantling of deficit perspectives, and navigating the INRW classroom. These are the sub-themes that were in my findings. There was a support system for their own success, either being a mentors, teachers, or family members, being part of the community and giving back, being a person of color role model and sharing their experiences, and then stop the spirit killers and pushing against those different perspectives in education. There was deficit views about the INRW classroom from students and helping the students push against those deficit narratives, and then thinking about the third space of INRW and the complexity of teaching those courses. And then here are some quotes from this theme. One is being part of the community and giving back. Gloria Lanson-Billings said that it's very important that we visit our students' community, their churches, their environments, and their parks, so that we know where they're coming from. Students know that I'm from the area and I honor their assets. I tell them, you can do it, si se puedes. Being a role model and sharing experiences. One of the things with me is having to remember to talk about my own self so that my students know my background. Otherwise, I think that they could see me as someone that they can't relate to. Maybe they think that there's a disconnect and I don't understand their struggles. And then stop the spirit killing, pushing against deficit perspectives. If people are making derogatory comments about students or deficit-based comments about students and students' potential, I will say something. So I think those are really powerful comments that give us a reflection of examples of them enacting cariño. And then we think about evidence of cariño in restorative literacies and pedagogy. So that means like what that looks like in their practice. And so this theme highlights how practitioners were led by their heart or cariño to embed culture and community practices that cultivated healing practices in benefiting diverse students, such as validating, creating counter spaces, and protecting and sustaining languages and accessibility. Some of those sub-themes were validating agents for students, si se puedes, creating a familiar bond, community counter space, protecting students' mother tongue, making everything accessible, and navigating diversity in the classroom. And then some quotes. So validating agents for students, si se puedes. In Spanish language, there's a term called ganas. It's the guts, the inner thing within. We push forward when things get tough because things in our world are tough. My students, have the stamina and the ganas, and they're not afraid. Creating a familiar bond, community counter space. I live in McAllen. I'm 15 minutes away from the border. And I think one of the challenge for my classes is a lot of them, they cross the border to come to school. I've had students say, Miss Samantha, and then I'm at the bridge and I'm going to be late. And then protecting students' mother tongue. I tell my students, don't be ashamed of your language, your accent, or the words that you can use right now. And I think these are great, powerful statements that show that these educators were creating safe counter spaces and showing up for the love of where the students were at right now without judgment. And then a third and final one will be the power of restorative literacy actually in the curriculum, right? So we were looking at praxis before, and now we're looking at the correct curriculum. And so this theme reflects on how practitioners of color use restorative literacy practices or culture and community practices to restore and counter those harmful literacy narratives so that students can make connections, engage in community building, and think about using critical thinking to appreciate their capital and knowledge, which students need to build resilience. And again, the sub-themes were incorporating diverse cultural perspectives and texts, holistic pedagogy, assessment building agencies, co-creating an atmosphere of communities, encouraging diverse writing styles and personal reflection, and examining social justice issues through historical and contemporary lens. And again, some of those quotes, incorporating diverse cultures, perspectives, and texts. When we talk about culturally relevant, oftentimes we focus on the culture, which is very important, but the relevant is equally important. As long as you're engaging with text and with the students in the classroom that would think that they would find relevant to their lives, you're probably going to be off to a good start, right? So it's not necessarily always with a cultural, but also what are the students interested? What's relevant to their current experiences? And then holistic pedagogy, assessment building agency. I also really made a point to give individual feedback on drafting papers. I would also do audio comments, and they seem to like that too. And encouraging diverse writing styles and personal reflection. I think that allowing students to get different perspectives, allowing them to be able to see different writing styles, or that writing styles could be mentored text for them, and just getting them to feel for and playing around with that text and incorporating in some way, shapes, forms of their own writing. And so as we get ready to conclude my findings, I want us to take a moment and reflect as we move into our semester, in our spaces with education, in our spaces with students. Are the texts that we presenting to the students written by diverse authors? Meaning, could we amplify voices that are not normally heard? Could that be supplemental, some other texts in there? And if textbook that's required, could we put in a different ways of knowing? If you're teaching science or math, could we do a different type of natural ways of knowing on science or natural ways of knowing on math? And how can we make those lessons relevant to the students' experience and interest? And how can we include students' culture and linguistic knowledge in the classroom? And there was a lot of findings about that in my study. And how can we reframe language from deficit mindset to an asset-based approach? And how can we demonstrate that students are experts, geniuses, and knowledge makers? Any questions?
I wanted to follow up on the diverse authors. It's possible to have authors of various ethnic backgrounds, but to follow on Aaron's comment on the chat, if those authors are not covering subjects that represent the culture of the individuals or are relevant to that group, is being a diverse author sufficient?
Are you asking me? Are you making a statement?
No, I'm asking the question. Yes.
Oh, okay. I think actually through the literature study, like during my literature review and through the findings, it is important. It is very important. Like, let's say you have one specific ethnic group. It is so important to continue to bring different perspectives, because that's how we develop empathy in the classroom. That's how we, that's how they start developing other perspective. Literacy is a way where students learn and grow. So anytime that you bring in different perspectives, they're taking that and going into a global perspective. Like, yeah, it's not only what we are experiencing at home. There's other ways that people see the world. And so it's very vital and very important that even if you have the majority of the students at one population, they're bringing multiple different perspectives into the classroom. That's a great question. Thank you, Dr. Chavez.
Yeah, I guess it makes a difference, like with the mere fact that it's a role model, that you see someone that you can identify with, even though that person may not necessarily be familiar, let's say, with the culturally responsive methods or asset-based framework. Even in the absence of that, their mere presence in their life experience, if they share it, could have a positive impact. Lori has her hand raised, Yvette.
Thank you. I'm just curious about reading and learning more about restorative literacy, and I'm wondering where you would direct me next.
Okay, so I'm working on a publication. I'm just playing. I am, and also, so restorative literacy. There are things out there, but they're always K through 12, and K through 12 is different from college level, and so that's where my research is coming in. Is we're taking what is used at the college, at the K through 12, and then how does that look, and how do we parallel those findings in the classroom, right? For math, for science, for English composition in the college setting, right? Because the students' needs are different. But if you wanted to look and read and just get more, so there are articles and then there are books. This one right here, Restorative Literacies, this is more of the ELA in middle school. So she has, this is written in a perspective of ELA, but in middle school. But again, she gives really great opportunities that I think when I was reading it, I was like, okay, I can see how I can move that to my college students. Because, right, I mean, there's adult pedagogy and then there is, there's things that we have to do different, but because we are practitioners, we can easily take the information and use it across disciplines.
Well, I think another point is if you're working with students that are considered not college ready, which would take the integrated reading and writing courses that we're talking about. In fact, you are teaching a lot of what they didn't get in high school, so that it's definitely transferable and applicable. I was talking to someone about math today, and that was one of the things that we found. Somebody said, well, that's for high school, but that's what we're dealing with the DevEd students, so, there may be strategies that we can borrow from. Trina mentioned that we should check for Mara Grayson or Yolanda Silly Reese for critical theorist literacy.
Yes, I would say Yolanda. So this is Yolanda's newest book, and it's really short, but it's on digital literacies. And so, again, K through 12, because that's their expertise, right? But again, especially if you're thinking about what it looks like and actually, I interviewed her. Some of these things are how she was talking to her college students and stuff that they were doing for their college students when it was online during COVID. And then, let me see, there is another book. Any other questions? I mean, we have books all around here. These are great suggestions. I love doing, yes.
Teresita, you had your hand?
Yes. How do you in your experience, how do you distinguish the cariño that you use to teach with the cariño that you need to use to grade? Because those are two different things. So sometimes students tend to confuse how much care you take for their learning. But then when it comes to grading, they think that you might be more soft when you grade. And sometimes we are not that soft. We have to grade. Have you done any research on how to see those two?
I love your honesty. I think so. In my research and interviewing the practitioners, a lot of the things that I think would help navigate is having like transparent conversations. So a lot of the practitioners would do rubrics And I mean, I don't know if you do that, Matt, but they would do rubrics and they would co-create on things. Like, let's say you had non-negotiables, but then they could come up with other things to do. So they felt like empowered. And then that was like the cariño part, like, okay, I'm going to grade you on this. And like, what else would I grade on you, right? That you feel that's relevant that we could implement. So I think that, I mean, they were really creative in their grading, and I am going to spend time in one of the, so my dissertation is going to be in 3 manuscripts, so one specifically in curriculum. And so I am going to be talking about specifically how they address assessments. And the big overall takeaway is they co-constructed those assessments. And I think that also helps with the students so they understand what you're looking for. Like, I know math is different, right? Because math, it's like you need this answer, but having them go, I don't know, but in the TTI that we're having next week, we're going to have a math person talking about that. And I think they'll be able to give you more feedback on specifically for math.
Right.
Thank
I
you.
was having I'm sorry, I was having a conversation this morning with someone on that particular topic with mathematics and trying to find a way to really have the students develop their literacy skills in order to really understand what the math questions were all about and to be able to write about them after the fact. And one of the things that this person recommended to me was that we needed to really push the little community of practice that we talk about for adults and teachers in the classroom, basically our little familias, our learning communities within the learning community. And her comment was that is they, let's say when you assign a problem, to actually allow them at the beginning to work it out together so that one person can explain to the other one, well, this is how I managed to get it. And the other one can talk about, this is where I got stuck in the like. And basically, this person is doing a lot of professional development for faculty. And she just felt that this was something that for mathematics we were doing enough, even if it gets to be once you figure out the problem, what equation to set up, and then to be able to explain it or write a little bit about it. And I think sometimes that leniency comes from allowing that work to happen in the group, and then obviously know that they have to stand on their own, eventually. And I think what Yvette said, if you're honest at the beginning and you say, these are the expectations. And if we do have intermittent, how they sometimes had midterms or whatever, if there's a way to begin to tell where you're lacking so that one has an opportunity to catch up. I had a conversation with Dr. Vale from the coordinating board one time about kids that were at the margins, and especially when we had to decide whether we get them out of debit or move them over. And basically she said, you want them to learn, but when they're just at the margin, she said, give them the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're going to be with you for part 2. So,
Okay, I also wanted to add an actual real life story that just happened. So my son needed to take Calculus 3 to pass, right? Like his whole degree, he has a job starting this fall. And so he had already tried to take Calculus 3 and he failed it. So there was a second attempt and he failed it. And we were like, oh my gosh, because he had a job and everything. And I said, email your teacher, tell her that if you don't pass this class, you're not going to be able to teach. You're not going to be able to do this. Is there any ways that you can do retests? Is there any, like, what other ways, right? And it was that cariño. I was like, plead to that cariño part of her, right? And so all she did was, she said, well, I'll open up those exams for you to retake. And so he had 24 hours to go back in there and retake those exams. And he worked his tail off. He slept like 3 hours, but that 58 turned to a 74, and my son's graduating and starting teaching. So I think that also answers it, right? Like that cariño could be from that that compassion where she didn't give him extra points. She didn't, soften what was required, but she was able to give him opportunities to again. And then he even told me, he's like, Mom, it was because I didn't have the time management to pass the first time. And so sometimes our college students need that extra opportunity to try again, because that's where they learn, right? That inner, that self-discipline, right? So sometimes it's not that they can't do the math, but it's that discipline and that self-control and that fire, like, I'm gonna fail. And so I think that's my real life story. And he passed, 73 or 74 is still not an A or B, but he graduated. And, she, I think, gave an example of cariño, because she could have just said, no, that's not my problem. But she was able to show compassion and give him an opportunity. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to add something to that. One of the ways I'm very, like, I try to demonstrate cariño to my students. One of the things that I do when I grade is I don't look at names because I don't like to be biased. And it took me many years to be able to tell the student, your paper, this is your grade. Let's say you got a 50 in essay 1. That's not your final grade. It's not ready yet. And one, I'm demonstrating to my students that writing is a process. So you come at this time and we'll continue working on your paper. And so I have students in paper 3 still working on paper 1, and students on paper 3, and some of my students are working on paper 2. So they know that writing is a process, and that's how I demonstrate cariño to them. Being available to help them with the writing process. And then actually, and I tell them, it's real easy for you to cheat, but you're not cheating me. So they come in during my I do office hours at the Ascender Center, so it's easier for them to come in, and we work on their papers, and they become better writers, and they understand the true concept of writing as a process. But you can be biased if you have those students that their situation. So when I grade, I try not to see, well, I grade anonymous, so I don't see their grade, I just see their writings. So yeah, that's how I try to incorporate cariño in assessments.
Thank you.
I think that I just finished grading papers from faculty, right? And faculty do the same thing. You know what I mean? They're late. You can tell when they didn't devote enough time, and you have this situation going on. So I think it's a matter of creating a certain, I guess, level of there has to be a certain individual sense of responsibility that you want to instill in people. There are certain expectations. So I do think it's important to remind people of that, and to be upfront. This is what I expect. Bounce it back, add to it. I think if you bounce something back, it's fair, because you let them know, I want you to succeed, but this is just not going to make it. You have until X time to see what you can do better, and can I help you? What's blocking you from doing that? And then you go, and then if you know that somebody just had like this major thing happening in their lives, which oftentimes they are happening, but they're not telling us, then you could determine if you would be more flexible or give them an incomplete, or something to that effect. But I've had people say, well, just have them drop it and take it next semester. Well, that's really difficult for our students. I'd rather we work on it and find a way to help you get through.
Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate you making time. I hope that everybody has amazing first week back as we get ready to join those PDs and orientations.
Yeah. Can we have a copy of your PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Yes. No. And yeah, well, thank you so much, Yvette. This was really informative. I wish we would have had more time to really go into people's writing and what they thought in that kind of situation. So it's really a wonderful opportunity to build upon. We got to start, and then maybe we can have part two in the future. and um, and thank you everyone on behalf of Erin. And please join us next month. Just so you know, Yvette mentioned she's going to be running a Transformative Teaching Institute. It's a half-day event. We have some excellent people joining us that we hope you're able to, benefit from. Go to our website, catchthenext.org, under events, and you can register there. And we will also have those student charlas and connecting chat conversations to troubleshoot on issues of higher ed. So wonderful job. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.